Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, the journey to becoming a conscious man, hosted by Milvo. Hey all, Milvo here, and welcome to episode 32 of the Unearthed Man podcast. To kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we work and gather, and their continuing connection to land and waters. I pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. I pay tribute to the diversity of First Nations peoples of Australia and their ongoing culture. Before we get into this episode, I just want to say how beautiful man is Aleki from last week's episode. Personally, I could spend hours with him, and as you could see, it was an hour 40, and we probably could have made that a 6 to 8 hour episode. His heart is as open and large as anyone that I know. It's also wonderful to see him such a peaceful place at the moment. His willingness to share his gifts, calmness and wisdom without seeking anything in return is just to be admired. So again, thanks, Leki, for giving me your time. Now, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, then welcome aboard. If you're one of my regular listeners, then welcome back. I'm really appreciating the ongoing support that I'm getting from my regular listeners. If you're looking to know more about the Unearthed Man, then you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So, today's episode, I'm very excited for the guests I have on today's episode. In a running theme that I've had a bit, I guess attended both the Bridge Experience and Extreme Leadership course in Brisbane with my beautiful wife, Jackie. They formed a connection that will last a lifetime. We've both followed his amazing journey since then, and I knew that one day I'd get the chance to also get to meet this beautiful-hearted man. This opportunity arose a couple of weeks ago at a program that he ran with his wife in Melbourne called Heal in the Home. During that meeting, he kindly accepted to come on as a guest. For me, that was a very humbling experience. So his bio reads as this. He is a father, a husband, a proud Samoan, born and raised in Sydney, Australia. He's a recently retired professional athlete for the last 12 years after representing both Samoa and Australia on the international stage in rugby league and rugby union. He's deeply grateful for his journey and how it has taken him and his family to every corner of the world. He has now left the bright lights of the stadiums to ignite the light within us all. He is here to bring us healing and reconnection and connection by using the sacred power of the breath. He is Frankie Winterstein. Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, my brother.
Milvo, what's doing, brother? Thank you for having me, mate.
As I said, it's such a pleasure to have you on here. I'm doing really well, thank you. We've had challenges, as everyone is, in relation to, climate and how we're operating. And, as we know, over the last 18 months or whatever else, we're in and out of lockdowns left, right and centre. Yeah. But I think the one thing for me is I've learned that I've always got my power and I've always got the control over what I see as being freedom. And while I maintain that, anything else that happens around us is just superfluous because I get to control how I go with it. So I think that's left up me in a really good position. How you doing?
Good, thank you, friend, mate. I love that. Obviously, you guys have had it tough down there in Melbourne, and it's quite interesting times up here in Sydney, to be honest. They've released a few new restrictions, and a lot more people are kicking up a storm, which is, it's great in my opinion. Like, I think it's really a great time that humanity is waking up and society is really, seeing the situation for what it is, and people's livelihood are being taken away from them left, right and center, and our freedoms are just as important, and they're getting taken away left, right and center also. And it's time that people rally together and stand up. So it's exciting times. Yes, it's crazy, but at the end of the day, I think it's the push that we need to really push back against the powers that be.
I absolutely agree. One of the things that I think is coming out is how we now define leadership and where the leadership comes from and what that actually looks like. This isn't a political podcast or anything else, but that's just to take on, how we're seeing people arise. Natural leaders are starting to come out and take lead. Personally, I see, yourself, Tay, your beautiful wife, you're leading, because you're holding true to your heart, you're holding true to your beliefs, and you're just leading from the front, regardless of what's feedback and everything else might be getting. And that inspires myself to be, have the courage to put things out on my Instagram and Facebook, do the podcast and talk into some of the challenges that we're all facing. So thank you for being that leader.
No, thank you, my brother. And yeah, just on touching on that, like for those listeners who don't really know much about myself, my family and I, we are very um, passionate, I guess, about medical freedom, especially. And I think what's gone on in the last 18 to 24 months has really woken up a lot of people that have been sleeping, on the government, on the whole pharmaceutical agenda and whatnot. But yeah, as you said, it's been a tough journey. Like, we've had so many tough conversations with loved ones, family, close friends. But at the end of the day, my wife and I, we know what we stand for. We know what our babies need. And that's definitely not what the government and the powers that be are trying to push. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I could not agree with more of that. And, I fully support, your beliefs. We're in a similar bucket. Well, look, I'll be the first to admit, go back 5, 6, 7 years, I'm probably sitting on the other side. I'm sort of, I'm in that space. But now that I've learned about having an open mind and the power of inquiry and actually the power of critical thinking and questioning what's happening. Am I being manipulated? Why am I being manipulated? How does all that work? Is it profit making? Is it really in my best interest? You start to come with a completely different perspective, which means I'm not anti anybody. I'm comfortable for everyone else to make their personal decisions. As long as they're not making decisions on behalf of me and how that's going to impact me and my family, they don't have that right. And I think that's what people aren't understanding. You don't get to make that decision as to whether I should or shouldn't receive medical treatment on my behalf, out of your own fear. Let me make that call. So, yeah.
Totally agree, man. And like, obviously the media, they play a role in this big bombshell. That's what's going on at the moment. And, you just have to flick on the TV or turn on the radio and all you hear is just, fear mongering, just left, right, center, back-to-back stories of all these fear campaign. And it's crazy. And it's so sad because a lot of people are sitting at home just watching TVs, their eyes are glued to the TV and just they're being programmed into thinking that this thing is so crazy. But in reality, it's nothing that, fresh air, a healthy diet, regular exercise, beautiful connection within your community can't, overcome. So, yeah, it's very sad. But at the same time, like I said at the start, it's exciting times because I think people are really starting to get the message.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So let's take a bit of a step back. So what is the Frankie Winterstein story? So, Samoan background, but, brought up in Sydney, Australia, you end up in professional sport.
Yeah.
But now, as you said, you're now a leader. You've got this open heart, open mind. Most men who are in this now conscious space, we had a history that got us to this realization. So, what does that look like for you to open up to the men so that they can sort of see that, this may not have been an easy journey for you either?
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Sydney, Australia, Canterbury, Bankstown area. I was a massive Canterbury Bulldogs rugby league fan. Literally, the house that I grew up in was maybe 300 meters up the road from Belmore Sports Oval. So I was a massive Doggies fan, and rugby league was a passion of mine at such a young age. I remember in kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher handing out these leaflets, and I got the leaflet and it said join rugby league. Enfield Federals, that was my first ever team, under sixes all the way up to A grade. So I took that letter home and I told my dad, Dad, this is me. I think I want to play footy. So, my dad took me down, I think the next Tuesday. And you know what? I picked up that footy and I loved it, to be honest. And so grateful for my journey in sports. I've met so many beautiful humans, playing alongside them, but also, they're their soul family now. These are the connections that I have all across the world. I was very fortunate to play NRL debut for the Bulldogs, my very first team, the team that I grew up down the road. So I had a bit of a journey. I was a Roosters junior. I went to school in Cronulla. It was a little triangle, but I lived in Belmore. But then, as my school career got going, I made state and Australian schoolboys and all these teams. And then I ended up back at the Bulldogs back in 2007. So, it was just a blessing just to debut there for that team that I admired and I looked up to. Terry Lamb was my favourite player. I'm not too sure if your listeners follow rugby league, but he was a small Aussie halfback. It was tough. And, I loved him. And I was actually coached by him in reserve grade of the Bulldogs. So it was just a beautiful moment. And then my career blossomed on. I went over to England. I was 20 at the time. So, yeah, was still quite young to leave home and move across the other side of the world. And that's when I just started dating my my wife, Taylor. So she was quite young. She was 19 at the time too. So she moved across the world with me too. So, yeah, it was just a massive learning curve for us, to be honest. I only signed a 1 year. I only signed a 1 year deal over in England, thinking I'd get some experience, first grade experience, then come back to NRL. But I ended up staying over there for 5 seasons. So yeah, we full time moved over to England, and as I said with Tay, it fast tracked our relationship big time. You know, we really got to see each other's mess. We really got to learn a lot about each other. And you know, keep in mind at that time we weren't conscious at all. We were eating everything and anything, drinking. I was drinking during the week. I had games on like Saturday. Always had Wednesdays off, so I'd be at the uni nights on Tuesday nights. So yeah, we were running them up. We had no kids, just dating. So like we were having the best time of our lives, to be honest. Yeah. So it was quite interesting times. And you know what? I look back at those times, and yeah, they're all lessons, to be honest.
Yes,
all lessons. We got up to mischief. We did some silly things. We did some amazing things. But yeah, all lessons. And one thing led to another. Finally proposed, engaged, and then we ended up getting married in 2013. My last year in England. We're actually getting married in Samoa. So after the 2013 Rugby League World Cup, I was playing for Samoa. We went over to the islands to get ready for the wedding, and then literally probably like 2 days before our wedding, I got a phone call from my agent saying, "Listen, I've got this Japanese rugby union team interested in you. You keen on giving it a crack? I know you haven't played rugby since you left high school." And I was like, "Mate, let's do it. Like, I don't care. Sign me up now. Like, I'll just learn on the run. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity." So we got married, went to Japan, spent 2.5 years there, our first 2.5 years of marriage in Japan, which was amazing. And that's where we really started to get conscious, to be honest, with your Milvo. Like, Tay wanted to fall pregnant. So she, God love her. She's an amazing woman. For those who don't know my wife, she's a powerhouse. And, I'm so grateful for my wife. And
she certainly is. I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
She's a total powerhouse. And like, she read every book, watched every documentary, just researched the shit out of pregnancy, because obviously she wanted to have a fertile body. She wanted to do the right things to prepare herself for baby. And then, one thing led to another. And that's where we sort of discovered, about the pharmaceutical industry and all the whatnot about, immunization and whatever, you get the gist. So that really opened our eyes to a lot of stuff. So that was in 2013. And ever since then, we've been proudly sharing our experiences, our thoughts, our beliefs. And wow, such a journey. A lot of criticism, especially because I returned back to the NRL after Japan via Rugby Sevens. I played for Australian Rugby Sevens, and then Manly and Penrith. And then at that time, Tay was, she was out there, and she was probably Australia's number one. What's the word I'm looking for? Source of information for the other side of the story.
Yeah, for pro choice.
Yes, exactly. And then, we copped it left, right, and center. We were in the Daily Telegraph, a current affair, you name it. Like, I'll never forget my first day at Penrith Panthers. I literally I left Manly on the Friday, had the weekend off, and then on the Monday, I started with Penrith Panthers, and that was leading up to round 1 of the NRL season in 2019. So I meet all the players, I meet Gus Gould, meet Ivan Cleary, the coaches, all the boys, and then I make my way into the cafeteria, and then I go into the kitchen, and there's always papers, different kinds of papers, newspapers. Walk over to one of the tables, literally see a photo of myself and say, anti-vax wag, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, wow, how good is this? I'm just minding my own business. I look up on the TV and it's sunrise and they're doing a segment on Tay too. And I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. Like, you know what? It is what it is. In my mind, I know there's families and there's players in that team who are like-minded. So they have my back no matter what. But obviously they're a bit not as vocal. So not one of the players said nothing to me. Because you know what? I've one thing that I've done throughout my career, I feel like I've held myself in good regard with everything I do in footy, like squeaky clean, sort of reputation. I think that's just the character that I am. I dive deep into the community work when I was there in the rugby league circles, and I have a good, I guess, reputation, if you want to say, in the rugby league circle. So no one ever questioned me, to be honest. And, I really respect that because, a couple of players could have said a few things or whatnot, but not one player out of all the clubs I've been to have, come at me in a sense like, what the F is, Frankie doing? Like, who does he think he is? I think they respect my family. They see my kids like light and bubbly. And then, it is what it is. They have the appreciation of, it's Frankie's choice. So, yeah, Milva, I've been around and it's been a journey, but yeah, right now I'm back here in Sydney, Australia after spending, I was over in France recently. Yes. I didn't get to France just yet. So we were in France during the whole lockdown hoo-ha of 2020, which was crazy, Johns. Honestly, our first lockdown was 55 days. We only could leave the house for 1 hour per day. You only could stay within a radius of 1 kilometer of your house. So it was full on, and we were living in an apartment in the city because we wanted to experience the French lifestyle, the culture. So I asked the club, Toulouse, over in France, we want to live in the city, like we want to be amongst the cafes and all the bakeries and whatnot, the lifestyle. 2 months after we arrived, we're 55-day lockdown. So I was like, oh my gosh, I think this was a bad choice. We literally had a 3 by 1 meter backyard of fake grass for the kids to play on. So, you know what, as I said, we look back on it and, it was lessons, and it was a beautiful experience because one thing that my wife and I really concentrated on was just the energy that we held throughout the whole 55 days. We wanted our kids to, feel love, not that scarcity mindset, not that fear mindset, just experience love and joy. Like, you know what, Daddy's not training, Daddy's at home 55 days. Let's enjoy this time. We really made, our boys feel like that nothing was really going on. And to be honest, we like out and about more than an hour a day. So it is what it is. And, back here in France, back here in Sydney now, I had to walk away from my career. I had another year left on my deal. But with everything that's gone on in 2020, you know what, I had to have a good look in the mirror and think, wow, my wife's literally followed me all over the world since I was like 20 years old. My parents are getting on. I was like, you know what, let's just call it a day. Like I'm leaving footy on my terms. I'm retiring on my terms. I'm not injured. I've still got a contract, but I feel like the way the world is going and, what matters is community and family. So I was like, you know what, I had to have a hard conversation with my coach, and you know what, they completely respected my decision. And, I'm just so grateful because since we've been back in Sydney, so many things have been going down, and I'm just so grateful for this whole journey, mate. So, yeah, that's a bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That really gives a great insight as to, just that whole, packing up the age of 19 and 20 and actually just going to it, even as you said, let's just go and try out for a year and see what happens. Then, 5 years and then married and then 2.5 years in Japan. I mean,
funny story. Taylor, she couldn't even boil right. Like, she couldn't even, boil pasta. Or she was the worst cook. And it's quite funny. We always have a laugh, great laugh about looking back at those days when we first started living together in England, because honestly, we've come so far. And yeah, it really formed the foundation of a whole relationship that first probably year living overseas, because as I said, we were very young, no support system, living life. Obviously weren't as conscious. So it was a massive lesson. And I'm just so grateful that we sort of stuck it out, because there was so many times that I had her bags packed and I was like, listen, see you later, go, there's a car, I'll drop you off to the airport. But, we just kept going. And, we've had our ups and downs, sure. We're like every couple, we're not perfect, but it's been a hell of a roller coaster, but such a great journey.
Oh, absolutely. I, not having been on your journey, but I know, now being with Jackie for 25 years, 26 years, same thing, Jackie, we'd met, and within 18 months we'd had our first daughter. Jackie was 18, and and so she was young. There was a 10-year age difference. I was an alcoholic, and but I'm been sober now for 18, 19 years. But
awesome.
we've been through many of those different sorts of things, and I think you always have a choice in life: is you take the easy road and just go, we're out, or do you face into something and go, how much of that is me? How much is them? How much is this just communication? Are we really in this together or not? And, I feel, we are stronger today as a couple than we've ever been in that 25-year journey, because we now, particularly because we've both been doing a lot of work, we both now actually not only know each other, but we see each other and we feel each other, and we actually are willing to give space to each other and actually hold space for each other. And that's such a really powerful place to being, knowing that, we're, who knows how long, but 30, 40 odd years still to go, let's, maximize what we can of that. So I get where you're at. And I just know that seeing how you two operate, a lot of opportunity, for you just to keep that bond growing and, just becoming this beautiful couple. It's definitely there in front of you.
Yeah, like you touched on communication, and like, man, honestly, I was probably the worst. I think men in general, to be honest, I think we struggle just to like spit it out of our mouths with the actual words, because we're afraid we might not get the right word that we're trying to say. So I think communication is such a big key, because looking back, so many like tips that we had were just like comes down to simple communication. If if we spoke more, if we actually checked in with each other, how we doing, with not just this little jibber jabber, okay, yep, she's a mind reader, she knows what I want, but actually saying it to her, it's quite crazy, to be honest. And I think it's one thing that definitely men can sort of lean into more, is just opening up and allowing your partner to see you and hear you exactly what's there, because we feel like we can't express ourselves in a sense where they might not accept it, but you'd be surprised. I think they're all waiting for that moment just to see, okay, here he is.
I agree. Men are brilliant at suppression, not great at communication. And if we could flip that other way around and actually just be willing to say, look, I'm not, and be willing to, what I'm going to say is not going to be perfect, and it's not meant to come out the wrong way, but I'm just going to say this, and if you can take it with an open mind, then we can explore what it really means, and let's have the conversation. And I think the more men can practice that and just be comfortable in doing that. But I think there's also part of that, having the right female, or even like in a male relationship, right? And then the other male partner willing to support those males having a conversation. I think that's the other key for us to feel safe, that we can actually say something and be vulnerable. So we have to have that safe space for us to have that vulnerability.
No, I 100% agree. And just on that, like, during the bridge you touched on at the start, 2019 with Preston and Alexi was a massive turning point. It's profound, to be honest, for our relationship, because I'd stored a lot of trauma throughout my whole childhood, and I carried that with me throughout my high school and career, through footy and everything. Like, I really bottled up a lot of traumatic experiences. And what I found was like, what, man, I can't tell anyone. Like, I'm going to take this to my grave. All these things that had happened to me when I was a kid, all these experiences. And when I finally told my wife in 2019 what had actually gone on, like, man, this pressure valve just went like, it's a massive deflation. I just felt all this weight off my shoulder. And like, what, not hurt me, but I guess, my wife, as I said, like, I talk about my wife so much. I just love her to bits, and like, she's so amazing holding that space. So I guess what hurt me, like, knowing full well, like, she's so capable of receiving this and hearing me and seeing me and helping me navigate through this. But I was so ashamed, and I had, I was in that low frequency of shame and guilt and all that sort of jazz, and like, I just didn't want to unload on her. But once I did, man, honestly, it just changed our whole marriage, and it took us from here like to another level. And like, it's just keep developing, and we're just striving and getting more and more connected, which is so beautiful, man. Like, honestly, so grateful for the experiences, I guess, and so grateful for the bridge. And extreme, because since then I actually stepped in. I felt like I changed completely after that experience, because my family and I, we'd been advocating this lifestyle for a very, very long time, and I was dipping my toe in. I'd post here and there, really not really speaking my truth, but not fully committing to speaking my truth. But one thing that happened to me after the bridge and extreme was like, you know what? Fuck it. Boom. I'm going all in. This is who I am. This is my truth. I'm fighting for my kids. I'm fighting for their freedoms. Let's go. This is all of me. Have me, take it or leave me, because, I just went guns blazing after that. And, ever since then, as I said, like I just feel so much more embodied after that experience, because you know what? I'm speaking my truth and people know exactly who I am. Not just my close mates, but everyone knows exactly who I am and what I represent. And, it's powerful in a sense.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think that's beautifully how you said that. I did the weekend after Extreme was a program called Unleash the Beast. The Preston men ran. So I had that weekend. So Jackie did Bridge and Extreme.
Cool.
Then I went and did Unleash. So within 3 weeks, we both had these, mind-blowing, heart-opening experiences.
Yeah.
And yes, that whole thing about, oh my God, I'm the one holding me back. I'm not the one in alignment with who I am.
Yeah.
But there was some release I had to go through. Like, I think I spent the whole 2 days just crying because I hadn't cried for 30 odd years. And so all of a sudden in that weekend where it's just all coming out, and I can remember, like, I'm still rounded shouldered, but I can remember going, like, there's space between my shoulder blades. Like my actual shoulders can come back and my shoulder blades can connect, because I was holding so much weight within my body. And same thing, I wasn't speaking my truth. I wasn't in alignment with, and I wasn't tapping into my intuition. I was tapping into my mum and dad's conditioning, my seeking love and validation from my mum and dad, and what my brothers would think, and what my professional work colleagues would think if I start putting stuff out there, like the podcast and talking about, addictions to porn and alcoholism and all these sorts of things. And then after doing it, I'm like, everyone's going, oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so you're actually all right with this part. They're going, you're brave. I wouldn't do it, but thank you for doing it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. We're all on our own journey. So going through those experiences are really, really huge. So, and look, it's up to you. On one of the things that I did with you, you spoke into speaking. One of the drivers of your professional career was that validation from your dad.
Yes.
Seeking. Because I think for boys and men, the first person we put up as a hero is often our dad, even if we've had really bad experiences with them. Right? They tend to be our heroes in our life. And it's not till later on that we actually realize that maybe there was elements that weren't the hero, or maybe there's elements that resulted in us enacting a certain way. So are you comfortable to talk into?
I was going to lean into that once I heard you saying the conditioning about the parents. But my dad, he put a lot of pressure on me, to be honest, to make it in footy. As I said, we're proud Samoans, but my parents left Samoa, went to New Zealand, and then New Zealand to Australia, and they were providing and they were, looking after a lot of my extended family. They were helping them get across the country and, find jobs. And all the meantime, my parents were working, the only ones working out of my whole family, like my uncles, my aunties, everyone. So they were providing for all of them, plus, myself and my siblings. So, growing up and making footy, making rep teams here, there, everywhere, my dad especially put a lot of pressure on me to make it. I guess, in a sense where, son, we really need you to make it because we're struggling here. We know what footy can bring in financially. Just take some, ease the pressure, I guess, on themselves. So with that said, at that age, I was still, man, why is my dad putting so much pressure on me? I just want to hear you say, I'm proud of you, son. I love you. You're doing great. But my parents, as I said, they grew up in Samoa, so they just, they were parenting from their own experience. So, we grew up in a very strict Samoan household, and, I got clipped on everywhere. I was getting hidings left, right, and center for just even speaking out of line. And, it is what it is. And, I appreciate my Samoan culture, but with that, it comes with a lot of pain, I guess. And then growing up, as I said, that pressure just kept building and building. And I was just yearning for my dad just to say, Dad, come on, please. My Samoan name is Va'a Fasavili, but my parents call me Va'a for short. And all I wanted as a kid that, my little child was like, just tell me you're proud of me, tell me you love me, tell me I'm doing okay. But yeah, I never got that, to be honest. And it's something that I'm really, really conscious about now with my boys. I've got two young boys, Ziggy and Hendrix. Ziggy's 5 and Hendrix is 3. Like, I really want to let them know that it's okay to show emotion, that it's okay to be exactly who they are. And I see them, I hear them, and I feel them. It's okay for me as a dad to come down to their level and just, take a few breaths with them and really understand where they're coming from as a kid, because, as a kid, we're learning so much day to day. And it's quite interesting to see the dynamics between my boys, because they argue quite a bit. It's great, to be honest, because they learn how to interact with each other without lashing out at each other for one of the boys breaking the other boy's Lego pieces or whatnot. But yeah, it's just quite interesting to see, and definitely grateful for all the lessons that I've had coming through my childhood. We struggled quite a bit. My parents struggled to make ends meet, but as I said from the start, I think it's all lessons, and all the experiences I had from a kid to this very moment has made me who the man I am today, and the father that I am today. So I'm just so grateful for it all, mate.
Beautiful. And in relation to where you're at with your dad now, like is there with your relationship with your dad, and has there been a point where you've had that opportunity for him to give that, hey, son, I love you and I'm proud of you?
Yes. It was, well, it's quite funny. I think, it all sort of started when I had kids, to be honest. Like, when I was going later on through high school, I was still yearning for that. It was quite awkward, give your old man a kiss and a cuddle, and my mates just like, what's he doing? But, I love it. I love that stuff. But once I had my boys, and I think when my dad saw me being so affectionate to my kids and just telling them I love my boys so much, then it sort of started to turn something on in his brain, like, oh wow, this is it. This is so beautiful. And I have a beautiful relationship with my parents now. I'm so grateful that they're still here on this earth. They're recently retired, so they got so much time with my boys, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to return from France, so my boys can have beautiful experiences with their grandparents. But yeah, we have a good laugh here and there, and he loves a game of golf, and I'm just so grateful for all the experiences, because my dad is definitely turned a corner big time. Like the father that I remember growing up has, complete change into a beautiful, loving, caring grandfather. So it's just really special to see.
Yeah, no, and I love hearing that that's where things are at, because I know I took too late in my life to make that reconnection with my father. It was probably about 2 or 3 years before he passed away.
Okay.
And it was actually interesting, because I had a really bad sore elbow, and I went and saw a chiropractor, and he goes, it's got nothing to do with your body, that you got a dad issue. Go and fix your dad issue, and your elbow will fix itself. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, after being in the chiropractor's office, like, he'd picked up that everything had been because I've been so slashed over years. That tension and pressure of me trying to carry all this from my father had actually built up in a physical ailment that I couldn't get rid of. And so I wrote him a letter, sat down with him, we read through the letter, and he openly said, I had a choice to be your dad or your friend. I made the choice to be your dad when I was growing up. I made the choice to be the disciplinarian, the dad, the driver. And I made that choice, and maybe that wasn't the right choice, but we all get to make a choice. But it's good, because we had that chance to have that, open conversation. And it's interesting. I was reflecting today, which is quite, well, no, it's funny not, but my daughter now lives in Cairns. So 24 and up in Cairns. She just packed up this year and said, that's it, I'm out. I'm going to live my life, and I'm off in Cairns. We supported her. And her son actually went to the snow to actually say, bugger it, I'm going off to the snow to work in the snow for 3 months. We're just going to take time off uni. And we're like, cool, go and live your best life. So today we're communicating, with our son who's snowboarding in the snow, and our daughter who's sitting in, 20 odd degrees up in Cairns. And we're going, wow, that's really cool. Like, our kids are actually living their best lives, and they're living life on their terms and what they want to do. And then as a dad, I sit back and go, I've probably done a lot of bad things and wrong things, but I can't have done too much wrong when I look at where they've landed. And you sort of, and you send a text message going, could not be prouder of my kids, and having, knowing that, it's just a really lovely feeling to land in that space. And, I can
that's
see,
beautiful, man.
And so the relationship that you've got now with your kids and how it's going, that's just going to continue to blossom and grow and go from there.
And I think it's so important too, because as parents, like, we're all trying our best, no matter where you come from and what circumstances you have, all parents are just trying their best from what they know. But yeah, it's crazy how much of an snowballing effect we have on the kids, especially between 0 and 7, that's the peak period where we've got to be really on our game as much as possible, as much as 24 hours a day if possible, because what we do to our kids during that time can affect them later down the track. Then they're like, wow, how the hell did this happen? But you remember one time, this moment when I told Ziggy off this way, or one time in this moment where I let Hendrix get away with this, where I should have done this, and like it's just all these aha moments of like, wow, my parents really effed me up. So it's quite interesting.
And the interesting thing that I started to learn a little bit more, probably not from a conscious perspective, but started to really understand more, is that all I was seeing in my kids was me. And where I was getting angry or where I was getting frustrated or where I was actually just not handling it, it was because it was shit I hadn't dealt with. It had nothing to do with them. Like they're just throwing me back in my face going, and my daughter used to say that, going, well, I'm your daughter, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
Like that would really
so
trigger
true.
me, right? But you sit there, when you reflect now, you go, oh, fuck, you're so right.
Our kids are our biggest teachers, I reckon. Like they just mirror everything, and as you said, like what they project is something that we haven't dealt with ourselves. Like it's leaking out sideways, and they can feel that energy, so they're just projecting it back to us. So you're spot on with that, Milvo.
Yeah, we either get to see it or we get to run away from it. And I think now I'm willing to more see it and face into it, which is a really good thing. So let's sort of move to where you are now. So let's take half a step back. I know that you said all your club members from a professional point of view, were pretty comfortable with, where you're at. But how did you go yourself personally with that alignment, knowing that you had a certain alignment in yourself and how you saw people and how you operated, and maybe the behaviors that you saw, in clubs? Because, sometimes sporting clubs or other type of clubs, there can be a level of toxicity that sits in with them, not with the people, but the culture and everything else. So how did you navigate your way through that, knowing that there are probably people listening or involved in sporting clubs or other clubs at different levels?
Yeah, listen, just touching on like the medical freedom stuff, like, as I said, it was a beautiful, honestly, it was honestly a beautiful experience throughout my whole career. Like not once did any of my teammates ever sort of badmouth me. I think they understood exactly where I stood, which is great. But, we've been within the inner sanctum of the sporting clubs. You do see a lot of things that gets sort of swept under the carpet, which is it's concerning, to be honest, Milvo. You got a lot of kids, you've got a lot of young teen or older teenagers into young 20s. They're earning a lot of money, and there's a lot of expectations on these kids to perform on the weekend, and with that comes a lot of pressure. And unfortunately, like when they don't have the best game, I feel like, they make some bad decisions. And a lot of those bad decisions have been well published in the media. And it's one thing that I wanted to get into breathwork, which is what I'm doing now, is to help the boys, because, I've seen it all. I've had to witness it all. And, I had to have some tough conversations with, a few of my teammates, and just trying to bring them out of that little rut that they're in, because it's just choices at the end of the day. They're just after they're searching for something outside themselves. But you know what, with breathwork and what I want to do now is, like, I also really want to bring these men back into their bodies and back into themselves. Because, as I said, like, there's so much pressure out there. And, in the footy circles, especially, Sydney, New South Wales especially, they're in the paper every single day. So they're like these figures, like, oh, wow, I want to be like this. But, deep down, like, some of these guys are the loneliest people ever. They love footy. They come to training every day just to connect with their teammates. But, when they go home and they start twiddling their thumbs and looking around, especially the single guys, they're struggling to connect. Or even some of the guys with, families and couples and marriages, they still go through shit, and especially if they're the high profile players too, not performing at their best.
Yep.
The scrutiny that they receive it's crazy. So to answer your question, yeah, there's definitely a lot of toxicity in a sense of choices, but I feel like they will be slowly waking up as technology advances, because everyone's got phones these days.
Yep.
There's security cameras everywhere. If you step out of line, like, you're gonna be on the back page of the Telegraph the next day. And I think the boys are slowly actually starting to wake up, which is good. But yeah, there definitely needs to be more of education, or there's a lot of education around it. It's whether putting that into practice that after 2, 3, 4 beers, the boys are just they feel like that invincible mask comes on, and like, wow, look at me, like, let's go. I was like, oh man, here we go. It's gonna be an interesting night. When I used to see that with a couple of my teammates. So no, it is getting better, but I feel like there still needs to be a lot of work there.
Yeah. So let's move into that, which is where we are. So igniting the light within people through breath work. So let's drop into that, because I know that we've just done a session with you recently where there's 2 or 3 variations of the breath work. It was such a beautiful experience. So what you're doing, why are you doing it? Why is it so important to do it? And, who you're currently doing it with, and let's lean into that space.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in France, our first lockdown, 55 days, I couldn't train. There was no games. Obviously, only 1 hour allowed outside the house. And I was like, man, what should I do? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get certified in all these breathwork modalities at the time that I was using personally for myself, just to sort of regulate, just to sort of tap into alignment, all these little tricks and tools, biohacking, whatnot, like all these things that made me feel alive. Like, I really wanted to look into it more, and why not get certified in that? Because post footy at that time, I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to, especially being a leaguey, like, I want to go into clubs. I want to help boys reconnect back to themselves so they can go home as a better partner, as a better teammate. Just to, because I know so badly, like, the boys search for acknowledgement outside of themselves, whether that be drugs, alcohol, women, gambling, whatnot. But if they can find something like breathwork, especially because it's not meditation, it's not mindfulness, it's actually powering that up with breath. It's actually like a training session, which they're very used to.
Yes.
So that was my little project, I guess, I had during my first lockdown. And one thing led to another, and I'm doing a couple of modalities at the moment, training, and it's just been so great. It's been so well received. Even when I sort of had to tell my French coach that I was returning back to Australia, I had those doubts come in my head, like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, footy is all I've ever known. I literally stepped out of high school in year 12, went straight into full-time Roosters training. I was training with guys like Brad Fittler, Anthony Milicello, all these legends. Like, this is all I've known. Like, I've gone to one club to another club with all these legends. I've been in my element all my life, and now I've got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Like, I've done studying along the way. I had all my certs in like business diploma or whatnot, but did they really light me up like breathwork? No, to be honest. And so there were those doubts, like, oh shit, is it gonna be well received? What's people gonna say? Like, how can I go from doing footy all my life to being a breathwork facilitator? So I had to really drop into breathwork for myself to get my head around that, to work my way through that sort of phase. And since I've been back in Sydney, like, Frequency of Frankie has, it's been so well received. And I'm just so grateful for the community that have, trusted me, because, we really go deep in a couple of my sessions. And I really try and take my culture into a room. I know you've been to Hill in the Home, and I sort of run the same sort of flow at my Frequency with Frankie sessions. I really want to acknowledge where I've come from, but also before doing that, I want to acknowledge, the ancestors, the culture that's already here in Australia, our Indigenous culture. So it's been a beautiful journey, mate. And I've actually been working with a couple of NRL teams already, first grade teams. So it's been great. Like, and the boys are so open-minded. Like, I think it's different because it's coming from me, someone that they know. Like, when I rocked up to a couple of the clubs, they're like, what? You're playing here now? I go, no, I'm not playing. I'm done. I'm here to do some breath work. And they're like, breath work? And then I said, oh, do you know Wim Hof? Have you heard of Wim Hof? Wim Hof, oh, the ice, yeah. Similar, but a bit different, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, yeah, it's been well received. And obviously with the COVID stuff, I've had to sort of push back all my face-to-face workshops, I guess, in-person workshops. But yeah, I'll eventually roll out some online stuff. We're having a bit of a break at the moment, wifey and I. We've come out of Hill in the Home tour, which has been amazing, to be honest. Like, yeah, and like during our French lockdown, actually, is where we sort of had that, this is what we need to do when we get back to Sydney eventually. Because we were doing all the stuff that we do in Hill in the Home. Every Sunday night, wifey and I would, get together, connect, boom, boom, boom. This is what we need to do. It's been a hell of a week. We've gone through all this bullshit with the French government, lockdown. The kids, been running amok, but they've been having the best time. But listen, we need to reconnect, babe. So every Sunday night, we used to do this Sunday ceremony, which we still do now. So we've sort of expanded that into Hill in the Home. And yeah, obviously Hill in the Home, the home for us is where it starts, everything in life.
Yes. Yep.
We can't be standing on stages at, big rallies, big marches. We can't be, standing advocating for our rights, in front of hundreds and thousands of people if the home life is, not where it should be. If that energy in the household is not good, if mum and dad aren't, a team, then what's the point of trying to go out there in the big bad world trying to give people their power if we don't even have the power ourselves. So that's one thing that we really wanted to sort of nail when we got back into Sydney. And yeah, it's just been honestly, it's been a whirlwind. Like literally we're in quarantine end of January, start of February, and what is it now, July? So we've done so much since then. So it's quite mind-boggling when I think about it.
Yeah, and as I alluded, myself and Jackie went and did Hill in the Home, and it was just one of the most beautiful programs I've actually been involved in. And it, beautiful in the sense that you still went deep. We still had to, connect with ourselves and connect with our partners. And it's probably something that Jackie and I hadn't actually done before. We hadn't actually done that couples thing. And as soon as she knew it, she was on, she's like, Tay and Frankie, they're going to come to Melbourne. And I'm like, yep, let's sign up. Let's go and do it. This will be really good for us to, bring and learn some of those tools that we can bring into the home again and continue to learn and grow off that. But again, breathwork for me is, as you said, there's multiple modalities. And it sort of doesn't, for me, it's just like finding the right one, but just it's actually tapping into breath because what I try to do most days as a routine is I have a shower, but as part of having a shower, then I put on What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. It's been over 2 minutes. It's about the right amount of time to do around 50 Wim Hof breaths. So if you do, so you can actually do, so I do the breath that, and there's a reason for that because then I go straight to my cold shower, which is actually to Can't Touch This by MC Hammer.
Mate, I love your morning routine.
So it plays. So my first song is Move It from Madagascar.
Okay,
So that's I have a hot shower, then breath work to What a Wonderful World with Louis Armstrong, and then finish off with Hammer Time with my cold shower. And that's about, a 10-minute now. That's a beautiful time to be in there. And then after that, then I finish with once the water goes off, it's James Brown, I Feel Good. And then that's the next song that comes on while I'm drying myself. And I'm so energized in the morning. But that breath work, that 2-minute breath work of oxygenating and just knowing you're alive, and then the cold shower, because you draw within yourself. You can't be in your head. You've got to be in your body. You've got to be in your heart. You've got to tap into yourself. And learning to do that is been the most powerful tool for me, and in doing the breathwork sessions that you do, the 10, 20, 30 is such a powerful one. So my hat's off to you, the fact that you're doing that. And, I know that any of the rugby teams or, that you're going with, that'll just increase their performance.
Yeah.
You just know that.
Yeah, well, sorry, it's cutting. Well, that was the actual thing that got me to a couple of the teams. I had a couple of meetings with the head coach and the head of sports science, the captain, and basically the head of sports science was like, listen, all the NRL teams, we're all doing the same thing. We're all training hard. We all got, tough, conditioning programs. We're all lifting the same weights. We're just looking for an edge. And what that edge is, I'm not too sure. But obviously this sports science guy, he is quite open-minded, and he really wanted to tap into that breathwork factor of just getting out of the boys' head, especially, and back into themselves. Obviously, whatever how they played on the weekend, whether good or bad, their faces are all over the Telegraph, driving into training. Like, the last thing they want to do is read like a shitty story about him. So it was really important for the coach, especially, to drive it. And he was all over it. He was like, "Listen, this is what I want to do. I want you here on Monday mornings. The boys will come see you first thing, 20 minutes, do what they got to do, recalibrate, come in with a fresh mind, and then go off on their day, whether physio, weights, or video onto field." And that way they can just come back into themselves. And that's the best thing about breath work. I think it really taps you out of that monkey brain, all these thoughts. What am I doing? Am I good enough? Oh, what's this person thinking about me? But it's actually diving deep into yourself. And as you said, there's so many modalities, accessing so many different things about your body, about, past traumas, experiences. Breathworks is it's a doozy, honestly. It's so great.
The one thing that jumps to mind for me, because I'm a sports nut, like I watch every piece of sport. For me, it's the decision making under pressure that is so critical. And my now knowing more about breath and how breath works, and even the cold shower and how that regulates your stress and how you handle stress and how you can operate in high stress conditions in a calm manner, because you're able to actually tap in and control. Those teams that actually are learning this won't understand that they will win. My prediction, these teams will win more of the closer games than the teams that aren't doing it, because their ability to make decisions under pressure by controlling their breath and and not letting the heart race and being able to make calm-based decisions, that will be that extra pass. That'll be that one decision that they make, rather than panicking, they actually make the right decision at the right time. And I think that's what you're doing. I think there's a huge ability for people to tap into that. I know we're talking about more sports psychology now and everything else, but that's the power of breathing,
Yeah. And I think, every modality has its place, any particular sort of environment. And obviously with the footy boys, I do very different to what I do with my little, frequency Frankie container. That's more of an intimate, healing journey into bliss. And then my wife and I, we've recently attended a rebirthing breathwork retreat, which was, bananas. It was crazy. And that's all nose breathing. And
okay.
It's an hour sort of session every breathe. And wow, I was back there for my level 2. Tay just, was there for her level 1, but also just the experience and just to go through a few things or whatever popped up. And man, honestly, it's so powerful, because that's, nose breathing. Obviously, there's different methods where it's mouth breathing, and then there's other modalities, which is nose and mouth. So, it is what it is. And, it's just crazy that, the actual thought of breathing can stir up and bring out all these beautiful things. It's crazy.
And look, and it's always through breath work also, where people, a combination of breath work and maybe meditation, where people actually have the ability to tap into, ancestors, spirits, people have passed on, and because we are so open, because we've opened up the deepest part of our heart, which is the part that's, and we're not talking about the, the actual physical heart, but the deepest part of our spiritual heart is the one that taps into the universe. And it's the one that's tapping into the energy that's in there. So being able to get into that right level of breath work and being able to open up that channel is so powerful.
So spot on. Yeah. And like, my grandfather, he's passed. He always comes to me, especially during the long breathwork sessions, and I just feel his presence. And, one thing that he always says to me is like, thank you, for healing. Because obviously, when we heal ourselves, we heal a whole lineage, a whole, that generational trauma, whatever that's gone on before us, we're healed. When we heal ourselves, we heal our whole lineage right back up into our greatest ancestors. So it's such a special and powerful modality. So if you're not doing breath work and listening to this podcast, get onto it ASAP.
We agree. All right. So you've been very generous with your time. So thank you very much for that. And I really appreciate that you've come on. Before we finish off, is there a message that you would like to put out to men? I know that women listen to this as well, but this is about helping men understand it's okay
Yeah.
to be vulnerable, it's okay to share and move beyond your trauma.
Yeah.
So anything you would like to put out there to finish
Oh,
up
for
on?
sure. Yeah, listen, like your journey is your journey. Like every single experience that you've experienced from a child to this very moment has played a purpose. And just know that, the good, the bad, the ugly, it is all beautiful no matter what. And there are people there who are willing to hear you, to see you, to feel you. If you're struggling to find that person, then, reach out to other people who are already there, who are helping people, be vulnerable, be them true, authentic self. This is 2021. There's so many fake things going on. There's fake news. There's fake people. There's fake food. It's a time to be real. 2021, on the back of 2020 has taught us a lot of things about life in general, that life is meant for connection, and connection comes in all different forms. But, the one and truly connection, I feel is, just speaking our truth. What I said at this, halfway through this podcast is when I spoke my truth to my wife, and I expressed so many suppressed emotions and experiences with what happened to me when I was a kid. I just felt so much lighter after it. And just know that you are worthy no matter what. Like, we're all here for a reason. We get one shot at life, and we are miracles, man. We are walking miracles. And we're all sovereign beings. No matter what anyone tries to tell you, you have the right, you have the power to do anything you want to do in life. So live your life to the fullest, fam.
Beautiful, man. That's a magnificent message. And I couldn't agree with that anymore. Own your freedom, take back your freedom, and live in alignment with your own personal integrity. And just be what you need to be, because you're spot on. In the conversation I had with Aleki with the episode last week, it was exactly that. It's like, we don't know when we're not going to be here. So why are you waiting? Live your life today as if there is no tomorrow, and because there could not be, and just live it to the fullest and be the truest the person you can. So thank you for sharing that
true.
message.
No, thank you. And the time is now. Whoever's listening, I'm sure a lot of your listeners might have some children. One thing for me is that what kind of world do I want to leave my kids with? You know what I mean? Like, I'm 35 in this year. I'm not getting any younger, but you know what I'm going to do? No matter what happens, by the time I'm 60, 70, 80, they're going to know what their parents did in this time, especially now where our freedoms are slowly evaporating. But we need to band together, family. We need to, take a stand for what's right, even for those, who don't have voices, for those struggling to show up authentically, for those struggling to speak their truth. We've got to give them permission by going first. Once they see us take that first step, then, it'll give them time, but they'll be there soon, right behind our tail, pushing along, pushing back against what's happening, because too many lives are being lost, through suicide, through depression, through alcoholism, domestic violence. But the news ain't showing those numbers, family. So we got to do it ourselves.
Yep, agree. Thank you very much for your openness, your transparency, for just being a beautiful person, jumping on, having a conversation. I wish you all the best for the rest of the day. All the best to you and your beautiful family. And I'm looking forward to, staying in touch and chatting again pretty soon. So cheers, man.
Thank you so much, Milvo. Thank you, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye. So that was Frankie Winterstein, and as I said, I was so excited when he said he was going to come on board, and it was just, again, a beautiful chat. It's just great to have men who are willing to just talk into their stories, talk about their journeys they've been on, and actually talk about where he's come from. As you see, Frankie's had an amazing story, pretty much finishing school straight into professional life. But even then, there's a lot of navigation that goes on with that. And now, he's in a position where he's absolutely giving back to the community and, the men in the community and couples in the community. And I have no doubt he and Tay are definitely leaders, and their kids will definitely be leaders as they grow up. So I really appreciate that. All right, so that's it for us on episode 32 of the Unearthed Man podcast. As I said, you can check us out on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. And sending you all much love and peace. Milbo.